Writing with Structure and Style, Tips and Tricks to Succeeding. My name is Steph Bennett. I'm a Learning Development Tutor in the Hub. Today's aims: to develop knowledge and understanding of practices in academic writing in preparation for upcoming assignments. We will look at academic style, what to do and what to avoid, essay format and peel paragraphs. Academic style, what's the story? Academic writing should be clear, concise and understandable. Some things to consider. Have you planned? Have you created a bones or skeleton structure? Is your writing focused? Have you gotten to the point, stuck to the point and not gone off on a tangent? Is it structured? Have you ordered your ideas in a logical way using peel paragraphs? Is it backed up by evidence? Have you conducted your academic reading via your reading list and wider reading via Google Scholar? Is it referenced correctly? Have you used the Academic Integrity Guide? Does it have a formal tone? Have you removed idioms and colloquialisms so everyone can understand what you're writing about? Assignment formats and subject specialisms may differ, but academic style and the general characteristics of it work across all disciplines. Let's get talking. Well, as we're online, let's get thinking. Why do we use academic style in our writing at university? List 3 reasons. If you can list more, list more. Pause the video for 3 minutes and jot down your ideas. Academic style has a clear structure. It uses signposting language such as a result, moreover, furthermore. And it's written clearly and concisely. And why? So that readers can follow your argument. It has an impersonal style because arguments are based on evidence and not opinions or emotions. It doesn't use cliches or slang, and that's because academia is international. And the audience reading your work, they might not have English as a first language. It uses technical language appropriate to your subject specialism so that you can be specific about your points. Every specialism has its own language. It uses citations and references to demonstrate that your points are evidence-based, and it helps your reader locate those sources, and also it gives credit where credit is due to the authors whose ideas you have drawn upon. Myth-busting academic writing. You might think that we're looking for big words, or complicated writing, or long paragraphs, or getting the right answer. Actually, we're looking for appropriate words related to your subject specialism, clear writing so we can gauge what you're trying to say, focused paragraphs using a peel structure, which we'll go through in just a moment, and constructing an answer, because there might not be a right answer. You've just got to argue the extent to which you believe something to be true. What is structure and style? Well, structure is the way your ideas are organised in your academic writing, and they need to be logical. They also need to be easy to follow, so we can gauge what you're trying to say, and they need to be balanced. You need to be taking a look at both sides of the argument, pros and cons, strengths and limitations. Style is the tone and voice of your writing, and it needs to be formal, and it needs to follow general academic conventions in terms of your spelling, punctuation, grammar, and APA referencing. And finally, it needs to be objective. And that ties in with the idea of being balanced, looking at both sides of the argument, looking at people that support one another regarding an idea, and people who challenge that idea as well. Elements of structure and style. Well, we're going to start with word choice, selecting the best words to get your meaning across succinctly and clearly. Sentence structure, arranging your sentences accurately and effectively. The syntax is a big thing to pay attention to here, the flow of the sentence. That's why reading your work out loud is really important. Paragraph structure, presenting your ideas in a clear and logical way. I mentioned peel earlier on. We're going to go through that shortly. That will help you with this. Who is your audience? When writing, our tone and style are dependent on who will be reading it. Your assessor, they might not know you. They might also be blind marking your assignment. So your academic voice and style must be super clear. Academic voice. So, sometimes we might have a bit of a skewed idea as to what academic style is and what academic writing should look like. And sometimes we get it confused with this. A diminutive yet intrepid arachnid commenced a perilous pursuit to scale the tremendous heights of a perpendicular conduit. I really need a breath, I'm going to stop there. This is not clear or concise or understandable. And they are the three components of academic style and academic writing. Now that we're here though, can you guess what this might be? Did you get it right? It is Incy Wincy Spider, or you might know it as Itsy Bitsy Spider. And no, we don't want your academic writing to look like this. Remember, clear, concise, understandable. We don't need those big words. We don't need extra long sentences. Let's look at sentence structure then and finding that flow. Sample 1. Sentence structure is, ultimately, at the heart of good quality academic writing because it helps to clarify the ideas being discussed and, when done correctly, can be used to draw attention to the most important points being made by the author, which can help to make the argument more effective. Sample 2. Ultimately, sentence structure is at the heart of good quality academic writing. This is because it helps to clarify the ideas being discussed. When done correctly, it can be used to draw attention to the author's most important points. As a result, it can help to make the argument more effective. Which flows better in terms of academic style and academic writing, and why? Did you get it right? It is sample 2. Sample 1 is one long, continuous sentence. It's something we call a run-on sentence. So if you are writing on Microsoft Word and your sentence hits 3 lines or runs over, you probably need to dip back into it and separate it using full stops, or streamline it and make it more succinct. Sample 2 you can see is broken down using full stops. It makes it easier to read and to gauge the flow. It also uses signposting language like ultimately and as a result, again guiding the reader through the discussion. So we're aiming for 2, not the first one. Punctuation. This will help with run-on sentences because it makes the meaning of the sentences clearer. Ideally, you need to be eating alongside grammar and not eating grammar. And to do this, we need to be proofreading our work out loud. Where do you need to take a breath? Does that mean you need a full stop or a comma or a semicolon? Where do you need to pause for effect? Do you need a full stop? Where do you think you need to end your sentence? Where do you think you need to break up run-on sentences? Punctuation really helps with that flow. And another helpful hint. Try to avoid rhetorical questions because it assumes the reader can answer it. And really, you're the one that should be answering the assignment questions. And try and avoid exclamation points because they are more about expressive writing than they are formal academic writing. Structure. Let's get thinking again. In a standard academic essay, what do you need to include in the intro, the main body, and the conclusion? Pause the video for 4 minutes and jot down your ideas. Example essay layout. We're going to open with the introduction. You can allocate around 10% of the word count to this, but it's totally flexible. You're going to start with a hook sentence that outlines the topic, draws in the reader, and it's kind of like that punchy, catchy one-liner. You're going to move to the context, some brief background information about the topic you're exploring to lay the foundations for the reader. This might be a moment where you draw on your first citations, you might need to define things, you might need to briefly touch on what's happened in the past or what's happening now, Or both of those things, what happened in the past and how is it impacting now? Then you're going to move to a thesis statement. What message do you want to convey throughout the essay? What is your overall argument? For other assignment types like reports or blogs or posters or presentations, you might exchange the thesis statement for focus and purpose. For example, what is the assignment exploring and why? And then finally, the map. You're going to signpost the reader through the essay, and this might sound a little bit like, accordingly, this essay will begin by discussing, subsequently it will explore, concluding that. Let's move to the main body. Approximately 80% of the word count, again, totally flexible. This is where you present the main bulk of the information about the topic. You're going to answer your essay question or respond to your brief instructions. You're going to present ideas in a logical narrative for the reader. And to do so, you might want to use peel paragraphs of approximately 200 to 250 words, again, flexible. And this can help with that logical narrative. And it will feature quotes or paraphrases from sources, and it will also critique arguments, theories, practices, models and frameworks. And finally, the conclusion. Again, approximately 10% of the word count, but it's flexible. You're going to revisit your thesis statement, reiterate the message you set out to convey in the essay and why you set out to do so. You're going to summarise the key arguments or ideas explored. You're going to reiterate the significance of these key arguments or the ideas that you explored. And you're going to tie up with next steps. Consider the implications of your argument or your exploration. Does it contribute to a new understanding of your topic? Can it be applied to different contexts? Are there gaps that warrant further research? Does it lead to suggestions to improve professional practice? Can it be connected to a broader debate or theme? And that will tie everything up at the end. Please do not introduce any new information in the conclusion. So no new quotes, no new paraphrases, no new ideas, no new arguments. It's just bringing together all of the key threads of the main body. Peel the layers. So we've touched on this very briefly. Peel paragraphs. What are they? We're going to start out with the point. What point do you want to make about the topic you're exploring? We're going to move to the evidence. Is there evidence in the literature to back up the point that you've just made? You can cite and reference these sources using the online Academic Integrity Guide on Blackboard. Then you're going to explain this evidence thoroughly. What does it suggest? Why is it significant? How might it be interpreted? And finally, you're going to tie up the paragraph with a link sentence, where you link the overall point of the paragraph back into the big picture topic of the assignment. Let's look at some examples then. Here is a history example. Pause the video. Here is another example. You can see government departments have been drawn on for evidence in this example. Pause the video. Here is an education-based peel. You can see this example has a synthesis of sources. That is where we have these two authors together, the Education Endowment Foundation and Joseph Rowntree Foundation, who both have the same idea about poverty and poor nutrition. Again, there is synthesis, White and Young, who talk about children coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds being more at risk of suffering poor physical development. You can see the synthesis is written in alphabetical order rather than chronological order. So the EEF comes before Joseph Rowntree. Pause the video. And then the next example. It's another business example. It's about corporate social responsibility. And you can see that in the explanation, an example has been given to really emphasise what the point of the paragraph is all about. You can pause the video to have a read of this. Let's get thinking again. From the examples on the handout, which I'll flash on the screen in just a moment, which follows a stronger academic structure and style, and why? You can pause the screen as the examples pop up. Take 4 minutes to jot down your ideas. Here are two introduction examples, Sample A and Sample B. Which is strongest and why? Pause the video. Did you get it right? It's Sample B. Sample A uses contractions like don't and can't. We want to avoid this in our academic writing. We've got really definitive language like absolute poverty means, when in reality we need to be using hedging language, such as absolute poverty can have. So it's not definitive language. You can see in Sample B there's a very clear thesis statement. Ultimately, it will argue that. So we're going for B. Here you can see the main body paragraphs on the left-hand side, Sample A and Sample B. You might recognise one of these paragraphs. Which is strongest and why? Pause the video. Did you get it right? It is Sample A. It's the one we've just looked at. And the reason that this is strongest, well, it's using that synthesis of sources, where we've got the EEF and Joseph Rowntree, and then we've got White and we've got Young. We've not got a quote drop in there like in Sample B. Sample B, you can see a whole sentence has just been taken up by a quote. But this doesn't show the reader that you've absorbed the information and understood and interpreted it. Whereas Sample A is paraphrased, so we know that they've gauged and understood what they've read. In Sample B, again, we've got that definitive language. Families from poor backgrounds will feed. We need to be using that hedging language. In Sample A, we can see this with, while this does not suggest, it does suggest that. So we're hedging our bets a little bit more. We can also see in Sample B that the writer has started the sentence with but. And actually, this is quite a clunky sentence, but because. So we want to avoid starting sentences with but, because, or and. So yes, we are going for Sample A. Now let's have a look at conclusions. We have Sample A and Sample B on the right-hand side of the screen. Which is strongest and why? Pause the video. Did you get it right? It's Sample A. Sample B is simply a roundup of the elements the essay has discussed, whereas Sample A actually concludes and reiterates the significance of the components the writer has looked at. So we're going more for Sample A than B. Proofreading and editing. This is all part of structure and style. Before you submit, proofread and edit. You can read it out loud. You can podcast it on your voice memos and listen back to it. You can form a proofreading group. You can proofread with a friend from a different course to see if they can understand what you're writing about. You can use an editing checklist, and we've uploaded this to the Learning Development Blackboard. And this is what the proofreading checklist looks like. You can head to Redwood Inc.'s Reduce Your Word Count. And here is what it looks like. 10 tricks to reduce your word count in academic writing. A really great example. You can use Microsoft Word Editor. It's the top right-hand side of the page. It's a little pen on Microsoft Word, and it helps you to proofread and edit and eradicate any errors in spelling, punctuation and grammar. And finally, the Academic Integrity Guide. I'll quickly show you what it looks like and how to use it. You will find it on Blackboard under Courses. Type in what type of source you're looking for. Blue videos are how to cite the source in text with the examples underneath. Teal videos are how to reference the source in the reference list with examples underneath. And you can download a copy of all the information on the page from the Word document below by clicking Download Original File. Moving forward then, for further help with academic assignments, head to Scribr. a great website for helping you write peel paragraphs, writing introductions, conclusions, and even by the time you get to your dissertation, there are step-by-step guides to writing each chapter. Let's quickly have a look at that now. This is Scribner's Guide to Writing a Paragraph. Each of the steps, a video to accompany, and the steps follow. With an example. Academic phrase bank. If you're stuck for sentence starters and you are starting to procrastinate, just head to Academic Phrase Bank to get you started. Let's have a look at that now. Here is Academic Phrase Bank. I've clicked on Being Critical. Now let's look at my sentence starters. I want to identify a weakness in a single study or paper, and here are my sentence starters. However, Smith fails to fully define what, Jones fails to acknowledge the significance of. What Smith fails to do is draw a distinction between. Really great for inspiration when you feel a little bit stuck. The Learning Development Blackboard has step-by-step guides to just about everything with academic writing. It has step-by-step guides to writing introductions, main bodies, conclusions, reports, presentations, academic blogs. So head to that, it's under courses on Blackboard. We've just gone through the Academic Integrity Guide. And finally, if you need more support, you can always book a one-to-one with Learning Development, Digital Learning and the Library to support you in your studies. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to get in touch with me. My email is on the screen. See you all soon.